Luke is a complete mess in episode 6 of the Essex Serpent, having bandaged up his wounded hand from the previous night. Despite the fact that the wound was stitched up, it's apparent that this will have a major impact on his career. That's especially true when he tries to pick up a knife, bursting his stitches and spilling blood all over the linen. Surprisingly, the scenario alternates between Luke and Cora, with the latter writing to Stella. As soon as Frankie appears, she abandons her thoughts. She leaves for breakfast after messing up her letter. Back in Essex, Stella asks Will to go get Cora and Frankie so they can return to her. As a result, Will decides to write to Cora, notifying her of her TB diagnosis and the difficulties she is facing. Will also reveals that he's broken, unable to get through most days, and that, despite Stella's wishes, he doesn't think it's a good idea for them to return. Meanwhile, Martha informs Ambrose of the terrible news regarding his social housing cost. After all, he decides not to go through with it. Spencer, on the other hand, is going to try to assist them, even offering to buy the entire building. Water and electricity are promised to the people, which they are overjoyed about, but Spencer's actual flex is to impress Martha. Spencer eventually offers her a job in order to try to raise money for social housing. Away from this plotline, Cora pays a visit to Luke and expresses her heartfelt regret for what has happened to him. Cora also suggests that he move in with her, which is met with skepticism. Cora continues, offering Michael's room, the cemetery, Luke jokes, and demanding an explanation for his refusal to move in. Luke says, "Because I'm in love with you. And you're head over heels in love with someone else." After hearing some wise words from Martha, Cora and Frankie decide to go see Stella after all. When they arrive, Stella is relieved to see them, but she has a request for Cora. She wishes for her to visit Will at the church. Her dream is for the two of them to sit down and chat about their problems. She gives Cora a warm, obviously knowing grin as she walks away. The people are still afraid of this serpent because Naomi is still missing and they refuse to venture out on the lake. Cora and Will, on the other hand, discuss Stella's condition. Will admits that he's having trouble with this but assures Cora that he'll always adore Stella. With that, the two appear to be on their way to kissing. Stella, on the other hand, brings Frankie out to the shore where she admits to having seen the serpent. She has Frankie push her into the water as she is sitting in the boat. Stella declares, "My God and King," as she prepares to encounter the serpent. Frankie rushes out to see Will and Cora, exposing Stella's location. The boat flips over as it floats up the river and Stella falls into the water. Will dashes into the river, trying to bring Stella back. He snatches her and drags her back to him. However, there is a brief view of what appears to be a serpent lurking beneath the water. Naomi comes wandering up the shore to her father as Stella returns home with Cora. She discloses that the serpent is no longer alive and that everything will be fine. Bells ring, the people gather, and they proceed to the river, where a gigantic creature has washed up on the shore. Although it resembles a whale, we'll call it a giant dying fish for the time being. Time jumps forward now that the serpent nonsense is out of the way. Will does his utmost to care for Stella as she slowly passes away. Cora, on the other hand, returns to excavating after getting a letter from Dr. Garrett regarding his progress. He misses her and has been promoted to the position of dean of the medical school, where he will teach others what he knows. Will receives a letter from Cora in which she tells him she's torn and repaired, as well as loving him. She expects him to respond, but he instead files it away with the other letters he's received from her. Will makes a decision and goes to see Cora in person, saying that he never wrote because he had too much to say. After kissing and healing the wounds from their past, the couple decides to walk hand in hand. So the Essex Serpent wraps everything up as best it can, but it doesn't really wow or relish in the frightening mood it created in the first few episodes. The ending is also an intriguing option, given that the novel ends, unless I'm mistaken, at the point where Cora asks Will to come see her, leaving the reader in a state of ambiguity. Meanwhile, this serial adaptation tries to go the Hollywood approach, with everything settled and no uncertainty. The subplot between Martha and the social housing bill appears to be a thinly veiled attempt to send a message about society as a whole, but it feels like filler and falls flat when contrasted to the show's more engaging characters. For much of the season, the triangle of Will, Cora, and Stella, not to mention Dr. Garrett, has been the driving force, but the second half has slammed on the brakes and struggled to really step up. This isn't a poor concert by any means, but it's also not particularly memorable. Early on, the show's thoughts and ideas were outstanding, but it eventually bends under the weight of expectation, descending into the dark region of mediocrity.